We want to say shout out to our sponsors, Watchman Cigars, Operation Decisive Victory, Webmerized, and our Patreon subscribers. Without you, this episode would not be possible. Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, where it's our take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy, while you, the listener, are invited to come up on the porch, grab a beverage, and set a spell. We've got a great show lined up for you, as always, but before we begin, let me introduce you to our starting lineup. Running the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live, and manning the chat, it is Magic Man.
Hey, everybody. And we're also on Twitch.
Ooh. It's like, ah. And then our illustrious person at the helm is our producer, Brian.
Hey, guys.
And I, of course, be Biggun. Hope you guys are having a great day and a great week. Thank you for tuning in to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Brian, can you tell our listeners where they can find us on the socials?
That's a great question.
All
right, we are on. I forgot I had to do this. We're on Facebook at Southern Fried Philosophy, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at SFP Radio. What is? I don't know what Twitch is. It's like video games, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's mostly video games, but I mean, it's another place
I used to like
catch
video
us.
games.
Yeah.
You can always email us at sfpradio@gmail.com. Please, if you want to support the show, Patreon link is patreon.com/sfpradio. And you can always catch us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and the TuneIn app.
Absolutely. And we really want to push you to our YouTube subscribers. I know Facebook is the place to be. I mean, because that's our demographic is Facebook. But if you could just do us a favor, go over to YouTube, just click subscribe. You don't have to do anything else. That helps our numbers go up. And if we get a certain number, we can get to a different level and do some really cool stuff. So we would really appreciate that. If you're staying at home because of the pandemic and you want to do your own podcast because you figure these three knuckleheads can do it, why don't you shoot an email to headlines@SFP Radio. Producer Brian will be able to get it nice and pretty for you and help you with all of your podcast and video work. And also, if you want to be a show sponsor, we would appreciate that. Just again, email us at sfpradio@gmail.com and we will be glad to tell you how the whole thing works. So we would appreciate that. Guys, we still need listeners from North Dakota, Alaska, and Vermont. I'm about to just book airplane tickets for all three of us. We'll just take a state. We'll go there. We'll hit play, get on the plane, and come back. So it's pretty close. Yeah, you could pick. Where would you go?
I think Alaska. If I could, if you're buying me a plane ticket, I want to go to Alaska. That's
okay. All right. Magic Man, where are you going? You got North Dakota or Vermont next? We were just going to make you go to North Dakota. I'll take Vermont.
I was going to say my mom lived there, so she'd probably be very happy about me going and visiting. When she's not from there, she just lived there long time ago.
Man, I'll tell you, we did a youth mission trip up there to North Dakota and Montana. Dude, have you guys been out there?
No, I would love. That's on my bucket list.
Holy cow, it is gorgeous out there.
I would love to go out there.
Yeah. No, I would recommend that at any point. So I'm going to ask you guys like I ask you every week. How you be doing? We'll go to Magic Man first.
Doing pretty good. Just another week in paradise, right? However, the last couple of days, the weather has been here in the Concord area has been magnificent.
Oh man,
I haven't been able to get out and enjoy it much, but due to work. But I take the dog out, let her do her thing, and get to bask in the sunshine a little bit. And it's kind of nice having some sunshine after all that rain we've had the last week or so.
Open up the window at least, maybe you can get some fresh air.
It's actually open right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Producer Brian, how you doing?
I'm good. I think Mojo would say this is the first fake spring, right?
that is
very true.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the weather. It's supposed to be nasty, like rainy tomorrow. It's gonna snow in like a week and a half or 10 days probably.
Probably.
March 15th. You know, St. Patrick's Day will be snowing because,
Right,
hey, North Carolina.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I do want to apologize. I have been sick. It has been on again, off again.
I think
for
you're
me.
taking this man flu thing a little too far.
Yeah. My doctor would disagree with that. So it's not COVID. I keep trying to blame it on COVID, but it's not that. It's hopefully just some weird viral thing going on, so nobody knows. But I did have to go through the whole quarantine process. So I was I was stuck upstairs in the in what I like to call cell 1A, and for 10 days, or close to 10 days, couldn't work, couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do was go from bedroom to bathroom, and had to do the whole sanitize, wear my mask up and down and all that kind of stuff. So I did do just a short list of positives and negatives while on the quarantine.
All right. So here's a negative: was being away from Jess and Small Batch. Being out, not being able to be on the team, that, making her do all the hard work. That was the number one hardest thing and negative. The positive for that was, man, there's lots of me time. Lots of me time. All right. So here's the second negative. There's lots of me time. There's a lot of that. It was getting really old. Here's the positive though. I developed quite a love for Popsicles. Don't know where that came from, but Jess sent me up a few, and I couldn't get enough of them. Was it like that pack you can get like with 100, like the little, there's like basically just syrup and the little things that cut your mouth open when you try to eat them?
Yep.
It wasn't those, was it?
No. It was the coconut cream and the peach. Like, these are legit.
Those sound delicious.
Popsicles. Yeah, no, these aren't the little kitty ones. So the next negative was I had to disinfect everything. When you walk out, you disinfect everything. The positive was I got a new super soaker. That was the easiest way to do it. Just spray it down with a super soaker, and that was good. The negative was being cooped up all the time. The positive, lots of naps. Got a ton of naps.
I will say the weather was terrible, so you didn't miss anything outside the house.
You're right. Yeah. That could be a positive. The negative, there's way too many naps. The positive, though, I did not get any bed sores. I just had no energy, and all I did was just lay in the bed the whole time. Like, I couldn't hardly do anything. But I didn't develop any bed sores, so that was a positive. Again, negative was a lack of energy. The positive was the excuse that I couldn't do anything. So, like, she asked, could you do this? I'm like, I don't have any energy. Here's the negative: falling behind at work. That's, you come back and, you got bazillion of emails. The positive was I got a total of 64 pages of a 350-page book that I really wanted to read. A whole 64 pages. Way to go. Here's the negative. I had a really bad loss of appetite. Just couldn't imagine to eat anything. Here's a positive. I was hoping to lose some weight. It was a good weight loss plan. Get sick, lose weight.
There you go.
The negative is I didn't lose any weight. And the positive is I'm breathing. So that's the positives and negatives of being in the quarantine.
Hey, you watched 3 Terminator movies all at one time, right?
That is right.
Is that a positive or a negative?
The first and second were pretty good, and then third was okay.
Yeah. I like the ending. I think I like the ending of the third one. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, it was a good ending. Magic Man, have you seen all the Terminators?
Just the second one. I'm not a really big movie watcher. However, I have seen The Lion King.
Well, that's a positive on you versus Mojo. Got it. Yeah, so it was just miserable. So I would not recommend that for anybody. Also, I developed a love for Thundercats. Like, for some reason, I went back to my 80s childhood and started watching old Thundercats episodes.
Yes, sir.
Thundercats.
And then I realized there's a reboot of it, and it's actually pretty decent. So,
oh yeah,
a reboot.
And it's decent. Wow.
Yeah, it's more anime, but it was. I really enjoyed it a little bit more. So
I've watched some of the Voltron reboot on Netflix, and that kind of
like it?
Sucked me in. They're real short,
yeah.
So you could binge the whole thing in 3 hours probably. But it sucked me in enough that I was like, they like to do the cliffhangers at the end of the season, like what's happening,
Yeah,
but I thought that was pretty good. If you like, and again, it's very anime-ish. And I don't remember watching the original Voltron, but I always wanted the toys.
Oh, man, I love Voltron. That was my go-to.
Didn't come on the right channel or I didn't have the right cable. I don't know. But I thought it looked good. I was very interested in those tiger things. Lions, right? Oh,
the lions, the lions.
Oh, see? That tells you what I'm...
There you go.
Yeah.
My mom would never let me play with G.I. Joe because her moral was the U.S. doesn't always win. I was like, okay, Mom, that's your political stance you want to take. So I owned no G.I. Joes, but I had tons of Thundercats and Voltrons.
I understand that coming out of that one conflict that the U.S. didn't win. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There's that one.
Well, more recent.
Y'all remember Transformers?
Oh,
yep,
please.
And
yeah,
Transformers.
And GoBots, which are like tiny Transformers.
That's like what do you call Aldi Transformers or something?
Yeah.
That's funny. So yeah, that was a fun time. So we're kind of a Southern, we say Southern fried philosophy. We wanted to start bringing up a Southern word of the week. The Northerners, you Yanks may not know what these are. So we thought we'd at least, maybe give you a word that you can plug into your vocabulary as you go about your business up in the North. So this week is the word buggy. Does anybody use the word buggy? You guys use that word here?
Buggy.
I did in the past, not anymore. Really.
No,
I don't know if I've actively used it in a long time. I think it's been phased out of my vocabulary, perhaps.
Yep.
For you guys that may not know, just a buggy is just another word for a shopping cart.
Yep.
My mom would say, "Go get the buggy," or "I need a buggy," whatever. So, evidently, the Northerners don't use that verbiage. So,
Yeah, I think someone in my life at one point has called it a buggy. I'm sure. So I know what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Good.
Actually, it's funny. We were talking earlier about me working at a grocery store when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I heard it called a buggy
for the first time.
That was back in the early '90s. Yeah.
But you were in California, though, right?
No, I was here I was actually in Charlotte.
Oh.
I've lived in Charlotte over 3/4 of my life.
Oh, I thought you were more.
I was born in California, but I moved here when I was 10.
Wow. Okay.
So I've been here. I'm a long-time resident. Yeah.
How do you feel about avocados?
I'm a Gen Xer, so
really,
they're green.
They didn't have those in California, I guess, when you were 10, right? No. We had a lemon tree out back that had big old lemons, like
come on,
6 inches around. 6 inches of diameter. Yeah.
What was that? Okay. Sure. It's a family show.
And for those listening, I just made my hand go back and forth.
He just wiggled his fingers like, no. But
yeah.
No, not today. Yeah. So, well, cool. I love avocados. I didn't even know what an avocado was till I did a previous podcast called Dr. Dave and Biggun in Texas, and he cut this green fruit in half and started eating it. I'm like, what is that thing? I've never seen one before. So we didn't eat those, obviously, in Missouri. All right, guys. So I saw this Facebook thing. It said, how country are you? So a Facebook thing says, how country are you? It gives 40 questions. And you guys, so it's going to be a long one. And we'll try to go as fast as we can.
Let's do it. Yes.
All right. Who's scored? Do I need to keep score here?
If you can,
how country am I?
If you can keep my own score, that would be great. Yeah, keep your own score. We'll do that.
All right.
All right. So just tally if I get one right.
Yep.
Okay.
And you guys can play at home. I'll go slow enough so that everybody can play at home. So how country are you?
All right.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
How are we?
I'm good.
Let her rip.
All right, ready?
Let her rip, Tater Chip.
Okay.
Point for Ryan.
Hell yeah, brother.
2 points. Have you ever owned a pellet or a BB gun?
Negative.
Well,
so do we do a point if
you've done
it's
it?
yes?
I've used one.
Okay.
I was not allowed to have one. So there's that.
Okay. Well,
does that count? Is that half point?
Half. No, you have to own it.
Okay.
Have you owned a real gun?
Check.
Check.
How many? Do I get to mark one for every gun?
No.
Oh, okay.
Ryan?
No, I didn't.
Prefer not to answer. Ever shot a real gun?
Yes.
Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. You got to answer these,
That's
Ryan.
my in-laws.
Okay. Use your words.
Use your words.
I better not. Using my mouth. Yeah.
Gone squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting?
Yes.
No.
I've gone deer hunting. Does that count?
That's not a squirrel or a rabbit.
You're right. Okay, so that's a no.
Actually, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, squirrel. I did a squirrel with my pellet gun.
Oh.
I've trapped a squirrel. I guess I have. No, that's true.
I could count that, yeah.
Okay. And it killed it. So, all right, so gone fishing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Owned a slingshot. Owned or used a slingshot.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Plucked a chicken.
Nope.
No. This is a weird one. Gathered wild ginseng.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Eaten deer meat.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Eaten frog legs.
No.
Fed a baby farm animal with a bottle.
Nope.
Yes.
Gathered fresh eggs.
Yes.
Nope.
I don't think so, no.
Driven stick shift.
Yes.
Yes.
Still have the car that has
Is
one.
that a country thing?
Oh, but the question is, what kind of stick shift? Was it a regular on the floor 4 or 5 speed, or was it 3 on the tree?
Oh, no, on the floor.
I was on the floor,
Yeah, my old pickup truck had 3 on the tree. It looked like an automatic, but you shifted the gears up there.
Top, man.
People thought I was banging up an automatic. And I put it up into second, which is like park with an automatic, and be like, this was an automatic. We'd be
drop a transmission.
Exactly.
All right, so rode around the town in the back of a pickup truck.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Started a vehicle using a manual choke.
Yeah.
Yes. My old truck.
Never have. Shucked corn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Waded barefoot in a creek.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Caught fireflies in a jar at night.
Yes.
I didn't do a jar. I'm just using my hand.
That's close enough.
Okay.
Tasted wild honeysuckle.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I got some in my backyard.
I got sick off of it one time. Gathered wild blackberries.
Don't eat the flower.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. I've done that.
Used an outhouse.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yep. Rode a horse.
Negative.
Yes. No. Smelled the scent of cured tobacco hanging in the tobacco barn.
No.
This is the one that I regret the most.
Which is weird because we're in a tobacco state.
Mm-hmm. Taking the ashes out of a wood stove.
No.
Yes.
You know, the tobacco thing, real quick, my great-grandmother, I got a hornet sting on my arm one time. My great-grandmother chewed tobacco. Oh, is that going to be on there?
Hold on.
Is that going to be on there? Never mind.
25, carried in wood.
Yes.
Inside the house? No.
Yes. Walked barefoot down a gravel or dirt road.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Slept in the tent.
Yes.
Yep. Been attacked by a rooster.
Negative. No.
Yep.
I've been around them, but I haven't been attacked by
I have
one.
not.
Yeah.
Eating a raw apple, potato, or turnip off the blade of a pocket knife.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I did today. Dipped skull or chewing tobacco, or applied it to a bee sting.
Yes, to both, all those things. My great grandmother chewed tobacco like a red man, right? And I was out at her lake house, and I got like a giant, killer bee stung me. And I was probably 12 years old or younger, and she just went, "Oh, no problem." She just pulled a chunk out and stuck it on my arm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was great.
Get your hog in there, boy.
I get some extra points for that, I feel like.
You should. Eating homemade snow ice cream.
Snow cream, yeah, man.
Yes.
Yep.
And my parents are listening, and they just informed me that I rode a horse when I was 4.
Oh,
so thanks, Mom and Dad.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
So I'm going to change I don't know which one it was, but
just add a tally.
Doesn't matter.
Just add one,
Yeah.
Just add a point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did.
Used a pump to draw water from a well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Old Salem.
Been on a hayride. Yep.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Jumped into a pile of raked leaves.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Dad.
Carved your initials in the side of a tree. Yep.
Yes.
It was easy. Sucked the end of an old piece of water hose in order to siphon gas out of a gas tank.
I've done this.
Does it have to be a water hose?
No.
Okay, then I can say yes.
Yeah.
I've tried and it didn't work, so I was too scared. Been shocked by an electric fence.
Yes.
I believe so.
Split wood with an axe.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Hung laundry outside on a clothesline to dry. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And number 40, eaten fried bologna.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Probably have.
Yep.
I can
Yeah.
say yes.
All right, gentlemen, let's tally them up.
I'm at 30.
I'm at 32.
Oh, you guys are counting slow over there.
Yeah, well, I didn't, Lions. I should have
That's
done
'cause
that.
we're
Do the little,
Yeah, I should have done that. I did it.
Oh,
Totally
yeah.
did.
I just, you can't even see mine with the.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not even.
that's crazy.
So if you did 10 to 20, you're a little country. 20 to 30, you're pretty much country, and 30 to 40 is bona fide country. So we are bona fide country. Gentlemen.
If you're right on 30, do I get to be bona fide or am I in the...
Oh, no, if you're 30, you're bona fide.
I will be the first to admit I'm a citified country boy. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, because I grew up in the suburbs, so, I can't really.
Yeah.
I don't know how legit that is. I mean, I feel like you need to have go to a field party, drink way before you should at the field party. There's a lot of other things that would be more country.
Most of my points here come from just the family I was raised in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was raised by these people would score 50 on this test. I'm just saying.
Well, you grew up in Mooresville, though, right?
I did, yeah. But there's some good old boys around Mooresville.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with it.
Nope.
Nothing wrong with it whatsoever, because I used to live over there.
Nice.
I was one of them in my 75 Chevy pickup.
There you go.
With 3 on the tree.
And our guest is Kevin Hofmann, by the way. He wrote a book called, let me find it. Here we go. Growing Up Black in White. So I'm excited to have Kevin on. We're going to talk a little bit about his story and about he's a biracial child. He grew up in a adopted white family. So just kind of talking about race relations, and he'll tell us his story. So we'll go ahead and bring him on. Well, Kevin, thanks for joining. I appreciate you coming on to the show. Man, you have got an amazing story. I want you to kind of maybe start at the beginning, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just tell your story to our listeners.
Okay. Yeah. So I am the product of an affair between a white woman and black man in the late 60s in Detroit. They were both happily married, just to 2 different people. And so, like I said, this is in the late 60s in Detroit, which has a lot of context because most people know.
That might have been a little taboo back then, right?
Oh my God! Not only taboo, but then so they have this affair in early 1967, and my birth mother decides to go home to her white husband and tell him that she's had an affair with a black man and chooses to have, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, the context at that time, I mean, a white woman who has an affair with a black guy goes home and tells her husband, I mean, he could have responded in any way. And, the police wouldn't have done much about it. Right. And so that's where my story begins. I was born in August 1967 in Detroit, 2 weeks after the riots of 67 in Detroit.
Wow.
So I'm this biracial kid born into this city that is literally at each other's throats because the black and white community can't get along.
Wow.
And some will argue even today in Detroit, they struggle with that. And so that's what I'm born into. And so my mother has me, and her white husband insists that she puts me up for adoption. And so taken from the hospital by my mother and her husband, it's their job to transport me to my own first and only foster. And I met a woman who was a good friend of my mother. She had shared with me that my mother called her from the hospital, said, I need your help. I have to take this child to the foster home, and I don't want to be in the car alone with my husband. And so this friend comes, and the friend had explained to me, it was my job to hold you in the back seat in a way that your mother could look in her rearview mirror and see you.
Wow.
We pulled up to the foster home. I get out, I hand you over to her. She goes in, 5 minutes later, comes out. And she said, me and your mother returned to the foster home about 2 weeks later to drop off some onesies and diapers. And that was the last time me and my mother saw each other.
Wow.
I was adopted at 3 months old by a white minister, his wife, and they have 3 biological children. So I'm the youngest in that family.
Wow.
At that time, they lived in a very white suburb of Detroit, Dearborn. And like I said, my father was an assistant minister at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Dearborn. And that began this issue with the community and the church because my parents had brought this child of color into this community.
Oh, wow.
And that included, at 11 months old, waking up to a cross burning in our front.
What?
And my parents stayed in that community for 3 years after that. And then finally decided this community is going to change us before we change it. We're going to leave. My dad takes a church in Detroit, and we go from this all-white community to Detroit, where the home where we lived was in a black community. So from age 3 to 18, I always grew up around kids that looked like me. And that was life-changing.
Wow. So how was it life-changing for you to go from the white neighborhood to the black neighborhood?
I don't remember much about Dearborn because I was so young, but I can tell you growing up around kids that look like me, so I'm called a transracial adoptee. So that's somebody who's adopted by another race. And so one of the biggest issues that transracial adoptees have is their own racial identity. Mm-hmm. And I grew up around kids that look like me. I never struggled with, I don't want to be black. I don't want to be a part of the group that I was a part of. So that's why it was so life-changing to me. I got to see kids who, I got to see good black kids, bad black kids, smart black kids, not so smart black kids.
Yeah.
But it just gave me, I got to see all the hues of black that I wasn't getting from TV or in the media. And that was life-changing because I didn't grow up not wanting to be a part of the group that I was in.
What about for your siblings, vice versa? Like, how was it growing up for them?
It was tough. So, part of human nature is we pick on the minority, no matter where it is. And so when we lived in the black neighborhood, I can remember several times the black kids would, chase one of my brothers home. So it was tough for them. And even, talking to my mom today, she'll say, we just couldn't find a neighborhood where everybody felt comfortable. You know, we lived in that black neighborhood for 5 years. When at age 8, my dad gets a promotion. We move 2 miles away, still in Detroit, but now to an all-white neighborhood. And so I'm the Jackie Robinson of that neighborhood. And so now it's my turn to kind of adjust to living, you know, pretty 24/7 around white kids. And that was an adjustment because those white kids weren't used to being around black kids. So they would say some horribly insensitive things because they weren't used to kind of controlling what they said or did.
Yeah. Wow. So, listeners of the show know, you don't know, I'm a foster parent. We do have one placement right now. But it's a Caucasian white female. But we're open to whatever, you know, whatever happens if we keep going down the path of fostering. But I mean, foster parents are incredibly needed, right? I mean, you know, I see kids day in, day out where they don't have foster families, or they're living in their cars with their parents and barely surviving. Can you talk maybe about the foster parents and the need for foster parents?
Oh yeah, it's huge. Because what's the alternative? Like, so
Yeah.
You get that a lot. So when I first started speaking, I would speak very openly and honestly about transracial adoption. And so some people would walk away from that thinking, man, he's totally against it. And I'm not. It's a numbers game. So if we don't have transracial adoption, unfortunately, disproportionately, children of color are showing up in the foster care system. So if you don't have transracial adoption, the other alternative is those children stay in care and they age out. That doesn't do those kids any good. It doesn't do society any good for kids to age out of care. So It's extremely important that we have foster parents and adoptive parents. And we need to do a better job too of reconciliation with birth families and trying to get kids, you know, helping those families to get back on track.
Yeah. I know both of our caseworkers have went above and beyond to try to do reconciliation. One worked, one didn't. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's really tough. So, but I also want to go back to when you were growing up in those formative years for you, you were able to establish that racial identity for you. What do you see the difficulty is for like parents that will say, well, I've got a black daughter, but I don't see color. And so we're going to treat her just like a daughter. And we don't bring that up.
And so I always say that would be great if you were John Travolta and you were the boy in the plastic bubble and that child never left your home. But the second that child leaves your home, they are seen as a child of color. And, you know, say what you want. That's just how our country responds. We respond physically to race. And so, some people do see color. So that's interesting. I get that quite a bit. Pretty much every time I train, it's, well, but I don't see color. I just see my daughter.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book on race and racism in the Christian church, actually. And the author had said, how I interpret that when people say I don't see color is, I don't choose to see color and race and racism. The whole system built around it. I thought, wow, that's an interesting slant on it. That, you don't see color, then you don't have to address the problem of race.
Right.
I think that's huge. That's a huge statement because, you know, especially for the church, Southern Baptist Church, you know, the Christian church. Like, it was kind of built around slavery, right? Like, I don't see color. So, and we've done, the church, Big C, has done a really bad job, North America has done a really bad job with that. Like, why are we so still divided in the church community, which you would think that would be the one place where unity and acceptance and togetherness is.
Yeah. And I think it's because, like you said, it's built on that. Like back during slavery, Christians were using the Bible to justify.
Right.
Right? So, and you hear that now, some of the horrible things that are going on. We go, yeah, we're putting these kids in cages, but that's okay. So, yeah, and I think, and this is the whole race and racism just boils down to one thing for me, which is if we can all just come to an understanding that I may experience this world and this country different from you, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like, that's the hardest thing as a person of color is when I share with someone that I'm hurting because I think someone treated me not so kindly because of race, and then I get the arguments basically that are dismissing what I've said. That leads to a lot of frustration. I remember when I got married early on, my wife would come to me and say, yeah, you did this and it hurt me. And my defensive response to that was, yeah, but my intention was this.
That's a valid excuse, right? Because I've been using that for at least 20 years.
I didn't mean to.
All I did was hurt her more because I just wasn't owning up to it. And I was kind of saying, no, you're so naive that you just got that totally wrong. And so if I like to break it down like that and just say, okay, so what if you were hurting and you shared with a friend that you were hurting, and then that friend did whatever they could to just dismiss why you were hurting? That wouldn't make you feel so.
Like, I got beat up by the cops. Yeah, I got pulled over one time for speeding. Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Or and that's the whole experience thing. Or I got pulled over once and they were just great to me.
Right.
Why on earth would they even be mean to you? Like, you must have done something to cause that.
Yeah.
When it's just not been. There's just tense relationships between the Black community and the police. We need to do a better job of addressing that.
Yeah. And the thing is there's no silver bullet to this thing, right? Like, we can't just say, oh, well, we can do reparations and that'll fix everything. Like, it is so systemic that, I mean, it's in everything that's going on, right? So I don't want to hog all the time. Do you guys have questions? I want to make sure, just keep the floor open for y'all.
My brain's shooting like all these different directions with this conversation because, to me, and I've mentioned this in the show, I live in a very diverse community, and I feel like we have to kind of address the elephant in the room sometimes when, blacks and whites are come together. So yes, we've had different experiences. The world has treated us differently for different reasons, whether it's right or wrong, and we can't dismiss those things. Because I haven't experienced it, so I feel like that even just have common ground. We have to just to get on the same page that way. We need to go, I know you've had a different life than I have. And just because, I'm not afraid to see a police officer behind me, I don't fear for my life.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't or don't, you know what I mean? I'm not the police are bad or whatever, but those are rational things, to a black man.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing too, is that, again, to me, it just comes down to logic and compassion.
Right.
And just compassionately, if you understand and hear, man, he had this experience that was traumatizing to him. And the police is a good one. So I live in a neighborhood, you kind of have to come off a main road, and there's only one way in or out of our neighborhood. And every time I turn into the neighborhood, looking to see if someone's behind me. And if there is, it's just automatic. I'm thinking, it's just on my mind that this could be a police officer. And how's that going to turn out? And that is a real fear for a lot of people.
Wow. And
so, justified or not, that is real. So when someone comes to you and says, yeah, man, this is a concern of mine, the better and logical and compassionate response is, yeah, that's horrible. Like, and that was,
if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to be afraid of anything, right? So
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, but
that's what people say, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what people say is, I had this interesting conversation with a cousin of mine. So he's white. We grew up together, and and the last time we talked was over the shooting of Philando Castillo, who was he was a teacher who had been shot in his car, and his girlfriend had taped it, and it was going through Facebook Live.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm watching, and the video played over and over on the news. And I watched that, and the conversation I got into with my cousin was my cousin wanted to tell me everything that wasn't on the video. And I said, you can't do that. Like, if this were a court trial, we'd bring in all the evidence. The video would be part of the evidence. You couldn't then say, well, yeah, but there's all this other evidence that I don't have. Like, that's not even a logical argument.
Yeah.
Those conversations always go the same way, which is kind of interesting. And so then it becomes, one group wants to justify why this person should be shot. And that's really hard to justify.
Yeah. And I think you said one of the key words there is just, you said hear, but I think we just need to listen to stories. And even the fact of just, it's not even like trying to see if it's true or not to that person or that situation. Like, that's just how they felt. And that's their experience. And even if it's real or not, that's what they went through. Yeah. And we have to appreciate that and understand that that's how they felt and that's what they went through. Right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the book, Growing Up Black and White.
Yeah. So initially I was fortunate enough coming up in grade school that I had this great 7th grade English teacher, Mrs. Sharfberg. And I had this ability to write. She saw it, encouraged that. And so I always wanted to be a writer. And I thought, man, what an interesting story. Like, not everybody has grown up like that. And I thought, let me share this story. And that was the initial thought. And I honestly, the book is written to white mothers who have adopted children of a different race and their race. And that's who I was speaking to the first time I wrote the book. And then, thankfully my wife had pointed out, there's a bigger story here. I think you can help more people than just in the adoption. And so, and it's interesting because that thought was in my head when I was writing the book, because I purposely wrote the book because I couldn't not talk about race in the book.
Sure.
And I understood that this is a very electric conversation. And I didn't want to talk about it in a way that people would just grab the book, read the first couple pages, and then go, no, it's too painful. I got to put it down. And so there was a method to my madness. So the book is about, this black kid living with this white family in Detroit in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, lives in a black neighborhood, then in a white neighborhood. And it really just chronicles kind of the crazy stories we all have of growing up, especially as a boy. And so I tell all these crazy stories of the crazy things that me and my best friend, this tall, skinny white kid in the white neighborhood, and all the craziness that we got into. And then in between those stories, it's my interpretation of how those stories were affected by race. And so hopefully the aim was to talk about race in a way that people could digest it and then have further conversation about it. And it's just me sharing my experience. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, really the driving force behind writing this book was I just simply wanted someone to hear me as a person of color growing up in America and as an adoptee. I wanted to just hear.
Yeah, and I think that's for everybody, right? People just want to be heard.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and so maybe talk about growing up as an adopted parent or a child. Were you able to meet the biological parents, and what was that like growing up with maybe being separated from them?
So always thought about my mom. And it's interesting. So we grew up, again, context is important. So I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Pre-Dr. Phil, pre-Oprah. Families weren't having these deep sure. conversations. And so we didn't talk about race. We didn't talk about adoption. And now looking back on it, we know, you know better, you do better. And so now we know, it's important for adoptees to have that environment where they can feel safe sharing what they're thinking and feeling. And I just didn't have that. But always thought about my mom, always fantasized about, one day meeting her. And when I graduated from high school, went away to college, I started looking for my mom at 20 or 21. And off and on searched for her. It took me 20 years. And then 2009, on the advice of a fellow adoptee, they suggested I use a search angel. And a search angel is someone who tries to find biological family for adoptees or vice versa. And so I used this woman. It's the first time I used the internet. And within 20 minutes, she found my mother.
Wow.
And I remember, sending her an email on my way out to a high school football game with my boys. And sitting on those cold aluminum steps and unfortunately finding out that my mother had died 6 years before.
Oh, wow.
And so, sitting on those stands, I got my mother, a picture of my mother's headstone, her obituary, and the names of my brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
So that began a search to find them. And so I started searching for brothers and sisters. All the addresses and phone numbers that were connected to them were wrong. The only phone number I had was my mother's husband, Louis. And out of sheer desperation, I remember I called my wife in. I'm in this room. I put the phone on speaker, expecting it to be a wrong number or no one would answer. And this male answered within 2 or 3. And I hadn't thought it through enough as to what I was going to say. And so I remember sitting there panicked. And I'm like, how do I ask the husband of a woman who's had an affair to give me information about all this? Like, I'm sure that wasn't a pleasant time for him.
Sure.
And so I just somehow I squeezed it out.
Hey, remember me?
Yeah, exactly. And he said, we met. It's 40-some years ago. And I'm trying to get information from him. And I said something like, I have reason to believe that your wife may have been my biological mother. And I gave her a name. And he says, hang on, you need to talk to my wife. And at this point, I'm kind of freaking out because I'm thinking, how did I get this wrong? Like, I've seen the headstone, I've seen the obituary, and this woman gets on the phone, and so I got to go through the whole thing with her again. And then halfway through the story again, I hear Louis in the background say, oh, you mean my first wife? So Louis had remarried within 6 years. And actually, I found out from my sister, my biological sister, that, this woman had been around before my mother died. But my biological mother and her husband were together when she died. And so I have to ask my mother's husband for information about, do you know anything about my biological father? And I'll give him credit. He was very generous and said, I don't remember anything, but your mother used to be really good friends with this woman. I don't remember her name, but if anybody would know, she would. So I'm going to give the phone back to my new wife, and she's going to take your information. When I think of this woman's name, I'll give you a call. And so I said, okay. Wow. So the new wife gets on the phone, and I got to go through this whole thing again with her. And then she says, well, your sister's been looking for you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm floored because I had just assumed that if a mother goes to the hospital pregnant and doesn't come home with the child, the logical answer is that the child died. Because my sister is 8 years older than me, and I have a brother who's 15 years older than me.
Wow.
So they would have known what pregnant was.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she says, yeah, your sister's been looking for you. So that was the Sunday before Thanksgiving, 2009. They all still live up in the Plymouth, Michigan area. I live in Toledo, Ohio, about 60 miles south of them. My sister married a guy who lives 10 minutes from me.
Whoa.
She was literally going to be going right by my house in 4 days for Thanksgiving to meet with her husband's family.
That's
and so
amazing.
I met my sister Thanksgiving 2009.
Wow.
And she shared with me what I wanted to know. I wanted to know what the real story was. And she shared with me how difficult it was growing up in the house. My mother's husband, Louis, was not the kindest person, so much so that my sister left when she was 14.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of gave me peace to knowing that adoption was the right solution for my circumstance. And I don't say that in all adoption, but for mine it was. I wouldn't have fared well as a child of color, quite honestly, in that white man's home.
Sure. I think it's important to note that even though you love your adoptive parents, that doesn't change the fact of, you still looked and wanted to be with your mom and see and meet her and always thought about her. But that doesn't mean that you love them any less, right? I think a lot of adoptive and foster parents think, well, they won't love me as much as they love their own parents.
Right.
But there is something there, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't love you.
Yeah. I think I do a lot of training with adoptive and foster parents. And what I tell them is just understand that kids have the ability to love more than one person.
Yeah. Sure.
And here's the bonus for adoptive parents is if you can teach that child the importance of finding love for their parent, you're really just teaching them how to love you.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to open that up and give them some identity to who they were? That's one of the most frustrating things as an adoptee that I grew up with that I'm just coming to grips with now is the courage and just the fortitude that my biological mother had to, and I didn't share this, but when she found out she was pregnant by a black man, she went to her sister and asked for money for an abortion. And her sister gave it to her.
Whoa.
And my mother left her sister's house with every intention to travel from just outside Detroit to Flint, Michigan, an hour away to end my life. And somewhere along that 60-mile road, she changed her mind, understanding that she was going to go home and have to explain to her white husband what she had done. And I wish I would have known that growing up, because that's the DNA that's in me. And the strength that woman had, she's passed down. And I think that, a lot of people talk about, that adoption comes with a lot of loss and grief from the adoptee. And that's a big part of what I grieve, was not knowing really the royalty that I came.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for foster and adoptive parents to demonize those bio parents, right? They're just really bad people, or they're horrible, but they're coming through a story too, and you don't know what that whole story is, and the strength that your mom had to do that is outstanding, just amazing. And so I think it's important for adoptive and foster parents, and we've committed, however this goes for our foster, is to always be positive about the parents, whether they're temporary, permanent, whatever, is just to always be as positive as you can with them, with their parents. So,
because they're part of them. That's the thing that.
Right.
So if you're constantly talking bad about the person that I came from, what does that say about me?
Yeah, exactly. So, Kevin, what are you doing now? What's your main thing that you're doing right now?
So my mission is to honor my mother, Helen, and her legacy. And that means, so now the work that I do is all about reconciliation. How do we, I work with schools, organizations, universities. And the biggest challenge I tell organizations, schools, and universities is we have to create a way or an environment where the guy with the Black Lives Matter t-shirt and the guy with the Make America Great Again hat can coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not easy. But we've got to find a way to come to some racial reconciliation.
Yeah.
And so that's what I spend most of my love doing it, spend most of my time doing.
Gotcha. How can people get a hold of your book?
It's on Amazon. You can get it through Kindle, Audible. You go to my website, which is just the name of the book, growingupblackandwhite.com, and get the book there.
Okay. Very cool. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I feel like I could talk hours with you, and I may just shoot you emails on the side. Hey, what do I do about this with my foster?
And I always extend that. I'm actually training tomorrow, so I'll training all day tomorrow for a foster adopted group. And I tell people that all the time, and very rarely do people take me up on it.
Really?
Yeah, and I say, email me if you've got questions. I mean, part of my mission too is to create a life for the kids growing up like I did, to make it better for them.
And you travel, right? Like you'll go wherever? Yeah,
it was in New Jersey not too long ago.
Okay. Yeah, we're part of a really awesome group here, Foster Charlotte. Man, they're amazing. So I'll connect with them. They've been on the show. Becky Santoro, we'll do the connection, and maybe we can have you out sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Kevin, thank you so much again for joining. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That was pretty cool.
Man, I seriously could pick his brain for days. Wow. Yeah, cool. What'd you guys think?
That was definitely cool. And that one thing he said about how, with foster adopted kids, if you're talking about the parents that make, the child might think, well, what do you think about me? Mm. Same thing can be said with step parents.
Yeah,
if you have a stepchild, if you talk about their natural parent, that could lead to some bad stuff. So I hope I didn't do that to Miranda. Miranda, if I did, I'm sorry. I probably just embarrassed her, but she doesn't really listen, so we're probably okay.
We'll just tack on another therapy bill for that one. So
yeah, there we go.
I understand. Bryant, were you going to say something?
Probably. I don't. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't know his story, so it's always interesting. That sounded like Unsolved Mysteries almost, or one of those like shows, those mystery like cold case kind of situations.
Absolutely,
it should be a TV movie. That should be a Hallmark movie right there.
Who would
be a BET
Kevin?
movie if they do the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, man, what a cool story, and it goes across lines, and I've heard, that so much from foster parents, and we're just going to treat them just like us, and I think it's so important to understand their culture and understand, and even there were classes on classes on classes of just understanding their culture, understanding what's valuable to them, and who they are and what made them, and you can't just ignore that. I think that's a detriment to just try to make them like you.
Yeah, you need to give them. They need to know their history. I think it's important to know, even for not like people like me or my kids. They're too young. Their grandparents are passed away. And there were some characters there, but they're not going to experience those what I experienced with them growing up as a country boy or a citified country boy.
Meemaw putting the chaw on her.
Right? Yeah. No, you're not going to. I'm going to have to start dipping just so they have that experience.
Sure. So they can answer
just things like know where you came from, know how you got here. Right? Yeah. I think that applies universally.
Yeah. And I think adoptive parent are just so scared of, well, maybe I shouldn't tell them. Especially if they're babies, should I not tell them?
Yeah, that's
not. Man, you can't
know
do that
at some point. At what point do they think? Is that like abandonment? Is what happens there? Like that emotion? I can't imagine. I haven't been through that. When you find that out, at what age? What does that do to you?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I was talking to an expert I read an article from an expert saying like 2 and 3 and 4 is when you start having those conversations. So like even that young to start.
Yeah. And you know, when you're talking about like different races, they're going to figure it out.
Sure.
Maybe a little sooner.
Eventually,
you know what I mean? They're going to go, wait a minute.
One of these things is not like the other.
Something's not right. But then, you know, like your situation, if you guys don't talk about it, she may not figure it out on her own for a while, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just tough. But I think he had some really good words, you know, just all across the board. So cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you tuning into the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast. We will do the Mountain Eagle next week, so we'll have that coming up. Also next week, we've got my friend Lee Short coming on the show. He is a huge fan. I didn't tell you guys this one, but man, he's got an amazing story going from addiction to being a preacher, and he's going to come on the show. He also has recently started, Brian, you'll enjoy this one, a barbecue competition and catering company. So I'm sure you guys will have some back and forth on that, which, by the way, he's supposed to be coming down here in September and doing hops and hogs, I think.
Oh, I've done that. I've been, hops and hogs. I did. Is that where I was at? There's like a festival they do in Huntersville. I think I went.
I think that's it.
They had like a bunch of like 90s rock bands.
Yep.
And a lot of craft beer and some barbecue. I did it pre-pandemic, like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
They ran out of beer.
Ooh, that's not good.
That didn't go over well. Yeah.
If we all get the vaccination by then, I'm thinking we might do the show from there.
Sounds like a good idea.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. We can do it.
Maybe.
Let's bring a battery pack with us. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Oh, no, he's got generators and stuff. We'll be fine.
Oh, he's all right. Yeah. It's logistics. I immediately jump into logistics mode when you say that.
No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be good. So anyway, he'll be on the show next week. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast. And as always, keep looking up.